Welcome to 5 on 5. This is the first 5 minutes on the first 5 miles of any particular shoe. Today's shoe is the ASICS Novablast 4. Step in feel. Okay, automatically I can tell you right now, it is an upgrade from the Novablast 3. It's more stable. It is probably the only stable, not even the most stable, but the only stable Novablast. So like when I step into a shoe, I check the lockdown. I do a little roll through. I do one of those little roll through numbers where I'm leaning forward in. What I'm checking for there is if there's room in the toe box. Does my foot slide around? Do I need to improve the lockdown? Which we'll come back to. Like even when I look straight down at the shoe, I can see the width on either side of the forefoot. There's just more stable of a platform. Okay, now as I run in the shoe, the stability is staying. It's not just in the step in feel, but also as I run in it. For the upper, it is the nicest upper of the Novablast series to date. This and the Novablast 3 do fit a little bit long. Like I've tried the 8.5 for the Novablast 3 and it was a little too tight, and then I went with the 9. It's just slightly too long, and in those scenarios I prefer the one that's too long, and then I do the razor's loop to get a really good lockdown for the shoe. But just beware, some ASICS shoes, they kind of run long just by a little bit, and this one falls into that category, but it does feel breathable, and I feel like it's some of the nicer material that they've used. And overall, I feel like that's a theme of the shoe. It's become more Saucony triumphy. It's like they took an indie filmmaker and they're like, you do Hollywood movies now. A little something for everybody. Take Clerks and then make it Back to the Future. I don't know what I'm talking about right now. So like once upon a time, I made a video comparing the Novablast 3 to the Rebel V3 and the Speed 3. And in that video, I compared the Novablast 3 to the 1. And it's like the 1, in that video I say like there's a slab of foam under the heel. And it almost makes me feel like I have anterior pelvic tilt, like I'm leaned forward like Michael Jackson. I mean, well, yeah, I guess that's the analogy we're rolling with. Anyway, so V1 made me feel like I had anterior pelvic tilt. Number 3 made me feel like almost like I had posterior pelvic tilt. Like there was more foam up at the front, like I was going up a hill or something, just slightly. I know it wasn't really, it's what it felt like. Well, with the Novablast 4, it just feels even, it feels flat. I don't feel like I'm being propelled forward, and I don't feel like I'm climbing up a hill. I feel like the roll through of a regular shoe. And the foam for number 4 feels like the foam from number 3, very similar. I feel like there's enough cushion to catch me if I heel strike. There's a lot going on back there. There's probably like over 40 millimeters of stack. And then up front, when I slap in the base, when my foot comes down, there's like a slab of foam up front that was there. Number 3, the foam that I felt like I was behind. It wasn't the most responsive, it's not like a super foam, but you get the energy return from it. So the Novablast 4 thus far also feels the same. Now for the midsole, I also feel like this is probably what you really want from the shoe. If it's going to be a daily trainer, a shoe that you want to take to 400 or 500 miles, something you can run in every day, it's a little bit exciting. This FF Blast Plus Eco rides the line really well. It strikes a nice balance between a responsive, slightly bouncy foam with something that's a little bit more firm, dependable, stable, something that'll last. They are who we thought they were. All right, for mile number 3, I'm gonna pick up the pace a little bit here. Okay, mile 3, 6:42. I wanted to try about a 6:25 to 6:30, something closer to threshold, but I'm currently running the most mileage I've ever run in my life, so I may not just have the legs for it. And the shoe's not exactly light nor made for tempo work, I guess. All right, so when I did try to pick up my feet and pick up the cadence when I'm picking up my speed, it's a lot of picking up, and the shoe fought me a little bit by trying to force me into that stride, probably because of the geometry of the shoe, and it was reminiscent of the Metaspeed Sky. Final thoughts, ultimately I feel like this Novablast 4 is probably what they wanted the Novablast 3 to be. Like maybe they rushed the 3 out, and I'll put a painting of what the 3 felt like in my head. Yeah. and then they took some time, and then here's what the 4 looks like. Like, not that the 3 was a bad shoe that like my toddlers made, but it's just that the 4 is a more fully realized Novablast 3. I do think this is my second favorite Novablast after number 1. Oh, side note, mile 5. Some of you have been complaining about the way the videos have been ending abruptly.